Can we all just take a moment to agree before we get into anything else that the Diana x Diana ship is like the main ship? Like that needs to happen. Because that end of the episode, when she's sitting there like, oh, how can I be so beautiful? And she's sitting there looking at herself in a mirror, I'm like, oh my god, she's a fucking narcissist. When you just see how she's falling in love with herself, I'm like, this is absolutely hilarious. And I was like, you know what? Fuck the Akko and Diana ship. Diana x Diana, all the fucking way. That needs to happen. Make this happen, because that shit absolutely hilarious. Now, with jokes out of the way, though, this episode is an entirely different ball game from everything else that we have seen thus far from Little Witch Academia. The only episode that is similar to this would have to be the previous episode we had when it came to Andrew being introduced into the series. Besides that, you know, connection or correlation, everything else about this episode is a little bit different in terms of what the theme is about, to the conclusion, to the starting point. Just a lot of this episode is very different from what we have seen thus far from Little Witch Academia, which is welcomed. I really love this episode for that, how different it is. Even though it was like an episodic episode like normal, it was a different episode that displayed characterization, development, and also how the series is progressing and what the end game of the series might eventually be. So let's talk about the big point of this episode, which is the love bee. This bee that's pretty much Cupid's arrow. If you've ever seen like an anime or manga or any other type of form of literature, most likely you have seen the concept of Cupid's arrow, like little mini episodes or something to where a character gets shot by an arrow that falls, makes them fall in love with the first person they see, and that's kind of what this episode was. It's a very simplistic episode in terms of what it was about. It's where this bee causes people to fall in love with the first person they see. Like, if it stings you, automatically, let's say if you saw Akko, you're like, I love you, Akko, and you just see how she's completely beautiful and stuff. Which, by the way, I love what Studio Trigger did with the animation in that scene, how they made Akko look like a normal anime girl, because I don't know how many people realize that or not, but if you go back to the scene, which I'll probably have it as the thumbnail too, you can just look at the thumbnail, but if you go back to the scene, you'll see Akko's face, the way it's designed in that scene when Andrew sees her. Her face is like a traditional anime. It's like the art changed to a regular shoujo anime or something with the way the eyes were drawn and stuff. And I'm like, whoa. Like, it looks so weird just seeing Akko with like normal anime eyes. And then instead of having the eyes I'm used to when I'm watching this show, I'm like, it's really weird. But it just really fits for the theme of that moment to when he's like, holy crap, yeah, I'm falling in love and stuff. I'm like, this is absolutely hilarious. But getting back onto the bee though. This bee is the main plot point of the episode. Akko and everyone else is trying to hunt down the bee to stop this bee from stinging anyone else and causing them to fall under its spell to where they fall in love with a certain, you know, object, person, or whatever. And that's kind of what it was, the in-game result. If you get rid of the bee, the spell is broken, and then everyone that's in love with each other, whatever, because of the bee, well, it'll be broken. They're no longer in love with them. However, from what we saw in this episode, we saw two examples. We saw an example with Latte and how she had someone actually fall in love with her, even though the spell was already broken, and Andrew, even though he already had some form of interest in Akko because of the previous episode, it seemed like he grew closer with her after this episode, like he was able to kind of bond with her and understand kind of what she was doing. And so because of the bee, it actually opened the door up for characters to actually grow closer and eventually maybe become a couple. Like that entire Latte situation where she actually is like, you know what, I don't want to go on a date yet because I don't have any feelings, I want to be friends first. I'm like, yo, like that is a good way to start a relationship. And so I'm like, job well done, Latte. I mean, yes, I would love to see them going on dates and everything to see her with someone, but I mean, in terms of real romance relationships, you need to, you know, become friends before you can actually be, you know, have romance between each other. And so seeing that scene with Latte, I'm like, yo, that's a very adult move. I really am pleased with that decision, with what Studio Trigger did with that character. Now, when it comes to Andrew, gotta say right now, I know many are going to be shipping the Diana and Akko ship after this episode, but like I said, I'm more on the actual entire ship with Andrew and Akko. I just love the actual theme with the relationship, you know, the royalty, and then the commoner and all that, just being together. I love that theme. I've always loved it in all other sorts of romance series I have read over the years, and just seeing that in this series, yes, I know it's cliche, that entire pairing, but I just love seeing that. And also, if Andrew does fall in love with Akko, obviously it is a good thing because it can make the actual magic world better for everyone. Because as we know, Andrew is in a position to where when he finally takes over for his father, he can control if, let's say, the witches or whatever, the entire Luna Nova, they get shut down or not. And so because of this, you know he has a big role to play. And because of Akko, she's opening up the door for many to see, like, magic in a better light than what it is right now. As we know, one of the big ongoing themes with Little Witch Academia, which most likely is going to build up to the main in-game result of the anime series, is that nobody cares about magic anymore. We know magic is a dying profession, and because of Akko intermingling with Andrew constantly, it's allowing him to see it in a different light and others to see it in a different light, and eventually maybe when the in-game result pops up with closing down Luna Nova and just determining if magic is no longer important, Akko will have a big role to play to prove that it's not pointless. It could bring happiness to others, which we saw in last week's episode. That was one of the big points I loved about last week's episode, was that Akko brought happiness to the principal of the school. And in this case, that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing where Akko, she's demonstrating how much she has learned, but also she's causing people to be entranced by magic. They're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And you gotta also take note in this episode how much Akko has progressed as a witch, because I don't feel like many might notice that when it comes to this episode, but it's very important. And honestly, I'm kind of concerned that Studio Trigger hasn't really focused on that a lot. They're kind of making that the background while they're doing other things throughout the episode, like, you know, the love bee and stuff, which is kind of puzzling, because, I mean, one of the big points about the series is Akko becoming the next shiny chariot. She wants to pick up the mantle and become the next one and allow people to love magic. And we know Akko got characterization a couple episodes back, and she's been going through a lot, she's been trying to study and learn, and we're obviously seeing progression with her magic, especially with what she did in this episode, the Cinderella magic, to what she did with the squirrel and all that, making it big. It shows that she has improved and she can use magic and spells now. However, that wasn't the main focus of the episode, and it was kind of thrown into the background, and many might not really notice it. And I wonder if Studio Trigger is doing that for a reason, or if they're really just wanting to focus on, you know, the theme of a certain episode, like, you know, the love bee or something. I don't know what Studio Trigger's doing, but it could be either or right now, but still, it does show, if you look really closely, that Akko is improving as a witch. So it was a good episode for Akko, how she was able to progress as a witch and better herself, but on top of that, not everyone ended up in trouble at the end of the episode. Everyone pretty much came out okay. It wasn't the standard, like, oh, Akko gets everyone in trouble, they're in even more trouble at the end of the episode, and then that's the end of, you know, the episode. It wasn't like that. It was a very sweet conclusion, but on top of that, you have it to where, you know, Andrew, he's realizing that Akko, there's more to her than meets the eye. So, yeah. Overall, an enjoyable episode. I can't wait to see what happens next, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.